Good morning. Well, we are obviously going to be in a money series. And so I think that bumper video made that really clear. And so for the next 4 weeks, the month of February, that's what we're going to be in. We're going to be talking about this idea of making change. And you know what really makes me curious this morning is I'm really curious. I'm not going to have a way of knowing because I wouldn't even trust that you would be real with me. But I really am curious. I wonder how many of you guys, when you see this title, making change, that when you see that, you instantly begin to think about, I need to make some more change, and you're thinking about lining your pockets, and this series kind of makes it to where you start to think about, what more could I do to make some more change? And then I also wonder for you when you're out there, how many of you guys, when you guys begin to see that this making change, this series on money management that we're going to be in, I wonder how many of you guys start to think in terms of, where do I need to make some change with my spending habits? Where is it that I need to make some adjustments with what I'm doing? Because I think that there's some of you that instantly start thinking down the road of, I need to make some more change. And then I think there's some of you that start to think, I think it's time for me to make some changes with the way that I'm handling my money, the way that I'm spending it. You know, when it comes to this series, I can't tell you where you're going to land with this and where it is that you're going to end up making some adjustments with your life. But I can tell you this, that I think if you will take this to heart, as we look into God's Word and look for some principles from His Word about what we should do with this thing called money, that I think that there's going to be some of you here that you're going to make changes to your earning power. That you're going to look at this and you're going to go, hey, what is it that I could be doing, and how could I be wiser in the way that I handle my time and my resources so that I can have more earning power? I think that there's some of you that if you take this to heart, that you're going to be listening to this and you're going to begin to apply it. You're going to begin to look for what changes do you need to make in your life. And you're going to start thinking in terms of your spending prowess, and what it is that you're doing and the choices you make with how you spend. And you're going to be going, hey, I need to make some changes there. And I also think that there's going to be some of you that if you take this to heart, that it's going to be that you're going to look at this and you're going to go, when it comes to my earning and my spending, I need to adjust my plan. And that I need to work on both sides of that. It's rare that when I start a series that I'm going to tell you, hey, where we're going to go and kind of map it all out and we can see where the weeks are going to take us. But I decided that I was going to do that with this particular series. That today we're going to talk about this idea, the value of less is more. That there's a value to this whole idea of less is more. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We're going to talk next week about stress is bad. And I know a lot of you hear that and you're like going, I don't need to bother coming because I've already figured that out. But just because you know that intellectually that stress is bad doesn't mean that you're making the choices you need to make to eliminate some of the stress that you keep bringing into your life. And so we're going to be talking about this from a financial perspective. We're going to be talking week 3 about giving is good and what it does to us. Now it makes us feel better about who we are when we know that we're giving away some of what we have to benefit others. So when we give away to God and we say, God, this is yours, use it in the way that you will to expand your kingdom, to share your love and your hope with others. And then we're going to finish the whole thing up on week 4 with this idea of tomorrow matters. What does it look like for us to be planning for our future tomorrows? And so that's where we're going to be headed throughout this series. When I think about this whole idea of less is more and this idea of making change, I think that we all have an appetite. And the one thing that we have in common with our appetite is this, is we have an appetite to want more. That's the one thing that we all have in common with our appetite. We have an appetite to where we want more. That what do we want more of? Well, we want more food, yeah. We want more success, yeah. We want more sex, well, at least the guys do, right? We want more responsibility in the workplace so that we can keep climbing up and moving further along. That what do we want? We want more. We want more what? Respect. We have an appetite for that. But one of the things that most of us are going to have in common is that we have an appetite because we want more money. We have an appetite for this. And I think one of the things that ties in directly with this is that we have an appetite to be envied. That we have this appetite to be envied. That there's something about when we have some successes, when we have some things that we think people are looking at us and thinking like, oh, they've got it together, and I wish I could be more like them, and I wish I could have what they have, and we do. We have this appetite to be envied. And God created our appetite, and sin has corrupted it. That God created our appetite, and sin has corrupted it. And our appetites are never fully satisfied. It's so easy to think that just a little more money will bring us a lot more happiness. Just a little more money brings us a lot more happiness. And if I had a little more money, I could buy a Tesla. Oh, and I would like to have a Tesla. Just a little bit more would get me that, and I'd be so happy with autopilot. Wait. Oh, I step out of this. See, our hearts are under attack. Listen, money wants to have an affair with our heart. That money wants to have an affair with our heart. Jesus talked more about money than he did any other subject. He did. In fact, when we look in our Gospels and we see that Jesus had these made-up stories or these fables, we call them parables, and you look at these parables, these made-up stories so that Jesus could teach specific truth. 2/3 of Jesus' made-up stories, these parables, 2/3 of them talk about money and possessions. That's a lot that Jesus is focusing on and wanting to make sure that we understand where money and possessions has its right place in our lives. That Jesus, when he talked about this more than any other subject. When we look inside of our Bible, 1 out of 10 verses in just the first 4 books of our New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 1 out of 10 verses deals with money and possessions. When we take our Bible as a whole, we have over 2,300 verses that deal with this very subject of money and possessions. When we look at our Bible and we see that our Bible teaches us on this high priority and the high importance of prayer, which is extremely valuable. When we look at, well, how much more did Jesus or the Bible as a whole, Old Testament and New, talk about money and possessions than it did about prayer? 5 times more passages dealing with money and possessions than there are passages dealing with prayer. There are 5 times more passages dealing with money and possessions than there are dealing with faith. So why is it that there's so much in our Bible dealing with this very subject? It's because money wants to have an affair with our heart. That money wants to trip us up, and it wants to take us in a direction that's going to take us outside of what God desires for our life, outside of where we're going to find our joy and our happiness, and it's going to distract us. And Jesus wants us to know, and God wanted us to know the right place that it has in our life. So I wonder if there's anybody in here like me that has ever thought something like this, that a little more money would make me a lot more happy. Has anybody thought that besides me? Yeah, we have. And okay, so let me ask you this. You guys did great with that. Has anybody here ever made any more money since you ever had that thought? Because I have. Yeah, I mean, I had that thought, and I was like, okay, and here's what happens with me. Don't know if this happens with you, but I have this thought, man, if I just had a little more money, I'd be a lot more happy. And I got here. And I was happy for a few minutes, maybe even a couple of months. And then I had this thought, it just came to me. If I had a little more money, I'd be a lot more happy. Did some things and arranged some things, had some success with some things, and found myself right here. And it was really good for a small season in my life. And then I had this brilliant idea. If I had a little more money, I could be a lot more happy. And what I've discovered is that is a fleeting thought. There is no satisfaction. You never get to a place where you can arrive and you can go, you know what? I don't need any more money. And I won't have any more because there's something about it that it trips us up when we begin to think that way. And if we're all honest, I think we could all say, you know what, that happiness, it didn't last. The happiness that we were convinced was going to last, if I could just make this a little bit more and we get there, and we were convinced that our happiness would, and yet it didn't. That money, it begins to have an affair with our heart. And when it does, we will take what little more that we've earned, and we will end up leveraging it to buy things that we couldn't afford to pay for at the time. And we finance it. We go, but it's okay because I'm going to be able to pay for it because now I've got more money coming in each month. And so now I can just pay a little bit more every month and I'll just use that. And we leverage it that way. And we live in a culture where normal is consumer debt. That this is the culture that you and I find ourselves in here in America. That normal is consumer debt. And that we go out there and we're buying things that are depreciating and they don't hold their value, and we're buying them on time, we're buying them paying interest, and it has become normal for us. And so we need to understand this principle and this truth, that less is more. That if we had less debt, there's more value. If we had less stuff, we're going to find more meaning in the relationships that we have. That there is a significant value to less is more. And so as we're looking to have more in our life, we can't fall into the lie that says more is more. Because there is a value to less is more. I want to share with you guys this morning 3 temptations that want to prevent you from making change. That there's these 3 temptations that want to prevent you from making change in the way that you view and the way that you handle money. And so here's temptation number 1. We are tempted to serve money. You might hear that and you're like going, no, not me. I'm not tempted to serve money. I want money to serve me. But I think as we begin to get into this, I think you're going to begin to see yeah, that's a very real temptation of being tempted to serve money. Jesus spoke about this. And Jesus talked about this. It's recorded in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 24. And this is what he said. He said, no one can serve 2 masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You can't serve them both. That you're going to have to choose who you are going to serve. And we are tempted to serve money by obligating ourselves to debt slavery. And we do. We begin to obligate ourselves to debt. That we live in this culture where we define affordability based on monthly payments. We define affordability on, will I be able to pay that when it comes due? And that's not the wisest way for us to evaluate and understand what can we afford and what can't we afford. When you willfully choose to make purchases, and you willfully choose to make these purchases, you base your choice on minimum monthly payments that maxes out your take-home pay without saving for the future, without giving your tithe back to God, without significant breathing room, financial margin, then you've probably succumbed to the temptation to serve money. And you serve it because you've become convinced that it's going to serve you back. that it's going to make you feel good, that it's going to cause you to enjoy life better, when instead it ends up entrapping you. And it gets to what we're going to start talking about next week. It gets to this place where it just brings a whole lot of stress into your life. See, debt is the reason that some of you are working multiple jobs. That you're working multiple jobs because you ended up buying some things that you really couldn't afford, and now you're having to work multiple jobs just to be able to keep up. I think debt is the reason that some of you are in a job that you hate. You hate it, you can't stand it, you don't want to work for that supervisor, but yet you look at all of the obligations and how you've set yourself up and how you have to have enough to take care, and you just feel stuck. Debt, I think, is the reason that some of you look at your life and you think, am I ever going to be able to retire? I don't think I'll ever be able to be at a place where I am not working, that I'm going to have to work. There's nothing wrong with working in those retirement years if that's what you want to be doing. That's great. But when you think about being trapped into it, it's because when you are younger and you're making these choices, and your choices are more is more, when you couldn't afford the more. And it traps us, and now we end up serving money. And we're tempted. We're tempted to do this. Here's another temptation. We're tempted to love money. We're tempted to love money. So there's this guy named Paul in our Bible. He's an apostle, and he wrote half of our New Testament. And one particular guy that he ends up writing is this guy named Timothy. Now, little Tim, he was a young guy, and Paul was just trying to invest in this young adult and trying to invest in him spiritually, trying to invest in him practically. And as we look in this book of 1 Timothy, the first writing that he sent to Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, he writes this, he says, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." Now, this has often been misquoted. And it's been misquoted as saying that money is the root of evil, or money is the root of all kinds of evil. No, that's not the problem. The problem is when it's the love of money. It's the love of money that is the root of all kinds of evil. There are people that have extravagant amounts of money, that they use that in very healthy and appropriate ways. And then there are people that really don't have any money, but they love money. And they get entrapped with the choices that they make because of their love of money. He goes on to write, "And some people, craving money, have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows." They've wandered from the faith. Well, why have they wandered away from it? They've wandered away because they thought, but I'll just be more happy if I have and if I can get. And they stopped looking for their joy in life with their heavenly Savior. They stopped looking for joy in life with the relationships that they could have. And then you end up getting distracted. And you stop living your life looking to your Heavenly Father. Because you can have some fun in the moment with money. It's easy to fall in love with money when it seduces you with these pseudo promises. And it'll make these false promises. When our pursuit of possessions, when it pulls us away from a path of living out our faith, we fall in love with money. When we just pursue the possessions and pursue the stuff, and we do it at the expense of being true to our faith, we fall in love with money. And the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. See, the idea of more money promotes these false promises to us. The more money, it ends up promising that people will respect you more if you just have more money. But it's not true, but it's a false promise. More money promises that you'll be happier if you have more money. More money, it promises that life would be easier if you had more money. More money will even promise that your problems would go away if you just had more money. And these are the false promises. So we're tempted to serve money. We're tempted to love money. And we're tempted, the third one, and we're tempted to think that we need more money. That is our third temptation. To which I would ask, how much more money do you think you need? And then I would remind you of a path that maybe you've already been on. When you thought, well, if I just had this, then. But you arrived. And then it quickly comes back. I just need a little more money. And we are tempted to think that we need more money. But what I've discovered is when we fall into this temptation, it is a moving target. It doesn't stay still. It's almost as if there's this magnetism that keeps pushing it, and every time you get closer to it, it just keeps moving away. It's like chasing the carrot. And so when we look at this, that we're tempted to think we need more money, let's make sure that we can understand the right place of money in our lives. In our Old Testament, this book Ecclesiastes, written by Solomon, extremely wise man, also extremely wealthy man, the wealthiest person during our Old Testament period. He said this, he said, those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. I heard somebody say years ago that the difference between somebody who's a multimillionaire and somebody who's far from that place. Here's the difference. That the person who's not a millionaire and they're looking at it, they're going, I just wish I could have more. The difference between the two is this, is that this multimillionaire, at least they know that more money doesn't bring more happiness. See, this person hasn't figured it out yet. And they think, oh yeah, if I could just have more. But when you talk to somebody that when they're having this wealth and they've got all of this resource and they have so much, that if they're still chasing the carrot, then even what they have, it just isn't enough, and they're still tempted to think that they need more money. When we look at our lives and what we do, that consumerism and comparison, these two things end up killing contentment in our lives. This whole idea of consumerism and comparison, it kills contentment. And we willingly spend ourselves into debt slavery, believing that more is more. But it's not. And many of you have lived enough to know that more isn't more. But yet you're still in the trance. And you haven't snapped out of it. You haven't discovered that money wants to have an affair with your heart and realize, well, I've got to change this. My heart's under attack. And I need to see the value of less is more. For most Americans, our problem isn't that we make too little. It's that we spend too much. That we just don't know how to manage what we have. Life isn't measured by the abundance of our possessions. That our life is measured by our actions and our relationships. That's going to be the measurement of our life. And here's what I think to be true. It's better to have some stuff you own than to have a bunch of stuff that owns you. that you have all this stuff and you don't know how to pay for it and you're stressing out over it, and it ends up owning you. And this is where we've got to find the balance. There's a pastor in Oklahoma, his name's Craig Groeschel. And I heard him say this. I wrote it down. I just thought it'd be great to share. He said, the richest people in the world aren't those that have the most, but those that need the least. That those are the richest people in the world. It's not that they have so much, it's that they are so full with what they have. They just don't need very much. So maybe you're hearing this morning, and you're starting to think, you know what? Wow, well, you're right. I need to make some change. But you're going, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to go about that. I've not been mentored by anybody. Nobody's shown me the ropes. I didn't grow up in a home that they kind of modeled this to me and showed it to me. I don't have anybody in my life that can help me get to a better place when it comes to making the change. To get to this place where I understand less is more and how do I do something with that? And you're going, I'm curious, and I want this, but I just don't know where to turn and where to begin. Well, we have something that I think is going to be of great value and great benefit to you. And that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be facilitating a program called FPU. It stands for Financial Peace University. And how many of you guys have taken Financial Peace University? So we've got several in here. Maybe close to 24% of you guys are saying, hey, yeah, I've done that. I've taken that. And so you've taken that, and you know what this is, but it is just what it sounds like. Financial peace. Some of you you're like going, is that an oxymoron? But it's not. Financial peace. That we could have financial peace. And it's called Financial Peace University because it's a 9-week session, a 9-week course. We meet one night a week for 9 weeks. And I want you guys to get just a little understanding of what this is. So we've got a video that we're going to show because a guy that created this, his name is Dave Ramsey, and he's going to be on video during these 9 weeks, and we're going to be learning from him, and then we're going to have a class facilitator that's going to facilitate our time together. But I want you to take a look at this to see just what is financial peace about.
For close to 20 years, families have been changing their futures through Financial Peace University.
I started it with a bad suit and overhead projector. I set the room for 135 people, 4 people came. And now today we've had over 1.5 million families go through this course. That's over 2 million people across this nation.
You may be wondering, what is it?
What Financial Peace University is about is a return to God's ways of handling money, but in a very practical, step-by-step game plan showing you exactly how to do it.
FPU is about learning how to control your money.
When you make these dollars behave, you're going to get this sense of power over your money that you've never, ever had. Don't move into a home with 62 debts or 6 debts or 2 debts and no money. You move into a home broke with a bunch of debt around your neck, Murphy will move in your spare bedroom, bring his 3 cousins, broke, desperate, and stupid.
Marriages are being made stronger. Couples are learning how to talk to each other about money and getting on the same page.
The closest statistical correlation to success going through this program are those that actively engage in this budgeting process, and for those that are married, they're doing it together. You change your life when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. When you get disgusted and you have that moment where you say, I've had it. I am not going to live like this anymore. We're done. We're changing this thing. Talk about the why. Talk about your dreams. Ask your spouse, what would we do? Where would we travel to? What would we buy? What would be changed if we became something as a couple where we were working together on that? Now, man, I'm sure you know this, and we've been talking about it for the last few minutes, but it's very true. Women are different, aren't they? Say yes. Yes. One of the things you may or may not know is they have a gland right in here that you don't have. It's called the security gland. And when she is feeling insecure due to money issues, that gland spasms and it is attached to her face.
This 9-lesson, 90-minute class will challenge you.
Now, this is a boot camp. I'm your coach. And so I'm gonna make you uncomfortable sometimes. You're gonna go home and go, I don't really like him tonight. Now if I agree with that, which would make you wrong, that's what happens when the coach coaches you, doesn't it? He kind of rubs you the wrong way. There's a little friction on there, right? I've had some good coaches, and they lit me up a time or two, but it caused me to go places I couldn't go otherwise.
Life change is never easy, but you won't be alone. You'll watch a DVD each week and discuss it with your small group. Your classmates will encourage you and help you take those first steps. You'll walk away from FPU knowing how to relate with money. You'll learn how to pay off debt and save for the future. And you'll learn how to protect your plan. We aren't born knowing everything we need to about money. We learn, and there's no better place to learn than the Word. The Bible offers more than 800 scriptures on money, and Financial Peace University is based on that solid foundation.
You are literally going to be doing things every week differently than you ever have based on biblical principles. Things like doing a budget, things like working with your spouse, things like singles having an accountability partner, things like teaching your kids so that a godly man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. It's not theory. This is actual application on everything. What would happen if the people of God started handling money God's ways? What would happen? What would happen to the kingdom of God if the people of God were out of debt?
All you need is a plan. Financial Peace University is that plan.
Financial Peace University. So if you want to take this, it's going to cost you something. Because it's going to cost you 9 weeks where you've got to give a night of your week, Tuesday nights. We're going to start this February 21st for you to come in and do this. But that's not all it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you $100 to take this class. And some of you guys, you hear that and you're like going, oh, I was all excited about it, but oh, it's $100? Well, I don't have $100. In fact, some of you guys are going to be so offended that this costs $100 that you're going to spend the whole time that you go out to eat today at lunch, and you're going to go out to eat, and you're going to talk about this. Go, I can't believe that they charge $100 to help somebody get out of debt when we're having trouble. We're struggling. We don't even know how we're going to make ends meet. And then the server comes, would you like a refill? Oh, yes, please, thank you. It's going to cost you something. Cheryl and I went through this when we were in our 30s. And it forever changed the trajectory of our family financially. I had somebody catch me in between services. And they said, Will you tell them my story? And this is just what the story is, just real quick, short and sweet. 16 months, $38,000 paid off in debt because of what they learned in this class, of how they learned to take control of stewarding their money. On average, a household drops over $5,000 in debt during this 9-week period as you begin to learn what are the things that we could be doing differently when it comes to how we handle the financial dollars that we have. So if this is something that interests you, which I certainly hope that it does, that I hope you're going to sign up for this. One of the easiest things you can do is you can just whip out your phone and you can text FPU to 59769. You can just pull out your phone and get it out there and just text FPU to 59769, and you can get a link of how you can begin to register for this class. And who is it for? I think if you're 17 years of age, then you are at the right stage of life to be able to begin to think about going through something like this. And if you're 77, you're not too old. That this is for all of us that are going to begin to understand, hey, what is it that we need to do and how we need to manage, how we need to steward the financial resources. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. Where does your yes need to be a no? And where does your no need to change to a yes? It's making change. And making change is about saying no to some things that we've said yes to, and saying yes to some things that we've said no to, and making the change, and be able to get to a place in life where we have financial peace. Pray with me. God, you allow us to live in a world where there is an economy of money. And God, it's not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing. And there's even great things and good things that can happen with it when we use it wisely. So I pray that you would help us on our journey of being stewards, being managers of the resources that you allow us to be able to handle, to earn, and that we would use these to bring you glory, to bring you honor, and put these in the right place, the right perspective in our own lives. Jesus, it's in your name we pray.